Today, we're doing a special report on a critical race against time happening right now in Bangladesh. It's a country facing an absolutely massive seismic threat. But their survival strategy? It's a radical one. They're not just betting on big institutions, they're betting on neighbors helping neighbors.
So to really get a sense of the urgency here, all you need is one number, 32. That's how many earthquakes have shaken Bangladesh in just over a single year. You know, this isn't some distant, abstract threat. It's a constant, rumbling reminder that the very ground beneath one of the world's most crowded countries is dangerously unstable.
And the danger for cities like Dhaka is really unique, because the whole area is built on the world's largest river delta. All that soft, waterlogged soil creates something seismologists call the jelly effect. It sounds weird, but what it means is that when a quake hits, the seismic waves get amplified. The ground literally shakes more violently and for much longer. It's a terrifying force multiplier.
So what's causing all this instability? Well, deep underground, the massive tectonic plates are being stretched in opposite directions, building up this incredible tension. The best way to think about it is like a rubber band being pulled tighter and tighter and tighter. And you know, eventually that rubber band has to snap. And that snap, that's the massive earthquake everyone is trying to prepare for.
Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core of the problem, a reality that has forced a complete, total rethink of how you plan for disaster. What happens when the official rescuers, the fire service, the civil defense, what happens when they just can't get to you?
In the moments after a major quake, the city itself becomes the biggest enemy. This assessment from experts, it just lays out the nightmare scenario. Collapsed buildings aren't just places that need rescue, they become barriers to rescue. They'll turn the city's entire road network into this impassable maze of concrete and steel.
And listen, it's not just about the debris. Dhaka's urban landscape is a perfect storm of vulnerabilities. We're talking decades of unplanned growth, building codes being ignored left and right, and streets so incredibly narrow that a fire truck couldn't get through on a good day, let alone during a crisis. It is a recipe for absolute catastrophe.
And the potential scale of that catastrophe is just staggering. Experts are warning that a 7.5 magnitude earthquake could bring down over 1 million buildings in Dhaka alone. Let that sink in for a second. 1 million buildings. It's a number so huge it's hard to even wrap your head around, and it really just highlights how completely inadequate any traditional rescue effort would be. So the conclusion here is stark, and it's basically unavoidable. The official safety net, the fire brigades, the ambulances, all the heavy equipment, it's going to be stretched past its breaking point almost instantly. The old model of just waiting for help to arrive, well, for most people in this scenario, that's just not a survival strategy that's going to work.
Faced with that brutal reality, Bangladesh is making a really radical pivot. The thinking is, if the big institutions can't save everyone, then the people have to be empowered to save themselves. And this isn't a small change, it's a fundamental shift in the nation's entire approach to disaster management.
And the centerpiece of this whole new strategy is basically a civilian army. The government has launched this huge initiative to train 100,000 volunteers in Dhaka alone. This isn't just some small community program. It's a massive mobilization designed to put a first responder on practically every single block.
And this isn't a completely new idea for Bangladesh. They're actually basing this community-first model on their world-famous cyclone preparedness programs. For decades, volunteers in coastal areas have saved countless lives, successfully evacuating millions and cutting storm-related deaths by over 90%. So now they're taking that same playbook and adapting it for an urban earthquake.
So, how does this new defense actually work? Well, it all comes down to empowering ordinary people with some pretty extraordinary skills, based on one simple fact. In those first critical hours after disaster, the first responder on the scene is almost certainly going to be your neighbor. And this is what it looks like on the ground. All across the country, groups like the Bangladesh Red Crescent Society are running these hands-on drills. This isn't about sitting in a classroom. It's about building muscle memory for rescue, turning courtyards and schoolyards into real-life training grounds for survival.
So what exactly are they learning in these drills? Well, the training is focused on these core life-saving skills. First, how to search for survivors in the rubble. Then, how to get first aid and CPR to the injured. They're even learning complex rope rescues to get people out of damaged high-rise buildings. And maybe most importantly, how to put out small fires before they can grow into city-leveling infernos.
And this massive effort is a true team effort, a real coalition.
It's bringing together government agencies like the fire service with NGOs like the Red Crescent, plus a huge groundswell of support from local committees, schools, and even market associations. It's truly a whole-of-society approach to survival.
But here's the thing. Empowering the community is only one half of the battle. It's a real race against time, where this new grassroots resilience has to be built right alongside crucial long-term fixes to the city's underlying structural problems.
So you can really see this two-front war being waged against the threat. On one side, you have the big institutional efforts, building earthquake-proof headquarters, buying heavy rescue gear, trying to enforce building codes. And then, on the other side, you have the people-powered resilience, those 100,000 volunteers, the public drills, the local evacuation plans. You absolutely need both. And that really brings us to the final critical question. When the shaking finally stops, when the roads are blocked and professional help is still hours, maybe even days away, which side of that resilience equation is truly going to make the difference between life and death? The answer to that could very well define the future of survival in our world's riskiest megacities.